This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. Control is the name of the game. And the closer we get to them banning gas-powered vehicles and then also doing things like this, which is requiring automatic emergency brakes on vehicles, which is a main concern of the government right now. Not the other stuff that they're allowing to happen, of course, because that's all planned to destroy infrastructure. But one of their main concerns, while airplanes are falling apart because they don't want you to travel and people are afraid to go into cities or even leave their home these days, right? One of their concerns is to make sure that cars have automatic brakes. Why? Because that way they can ensure that you either have an electric vehicle by 2030, because that's part of the plan, or if it is a manufacturer who's going to be willing to make you a gas-powered vehicle, even though they're banning gas-powered vehicles, so ultimately these will be electric vehicles that carry automatic emergency braking. What people don't realize is that it doesn't help protect pedestrians. You see, I'll show you eventually in this video that they even openly tell you, well, it doesn't really help save lives, but we'll tell everybody out there it'll help save lives so we can convince them as to why we want to put cameras and sensors on their vehicle. Of course, this is about having cameras and sensors on your vehicle to control the vehicle if need be, but also to be able to monitor and track you at every which way. People don't even realize that, and I told you many times over. People become so desensitized with cameras, with phones that have cameras, with all this stuff, that they're putting rings on their door. They're literally creating the surveillance state for the government. So this is what your current government cares about, right? Of course, they'll put propaganda in this clip I'll show you, where they act like people apparently are getting run over all the time, and the only way to solve that is to have automatic brakes. Not to, maybe make it so that phones don't work in the car, or that it's a severe punishment if somebody's texting and driving, because that's really how most accidents are happening these days. But they don't want to fix that problem, because ultimately there's going to be driverless vehicles where the humans have no control over the car itself. And that's what they want you to do. They want you to give up your rights as a human being to technology so they can enslave you with it. And people go, well, what's the big deal? Well, what's the big deal is you think that it's an invisible man who's behind the screen controlling the technology that you're using, but it's not. It's your government who's controlling it. So while you wonder when you're on the internet, you're like, I'm not being monitored, I'm not being tracked, I'm not this, it's not a big deal, my car and this or that. You're giving all of your power up to a tyrannical, psychopathic government. And they're going to have power over your every movement. And if you keep giving them things like, oh, we're not going to have gas-powered vehicles, we're going to go electric, and you keep falling for their climate scam and every other scam they peddle, eventually you'll have no control over anything in your life. Why do you think they're going after, wood-burning stoves, etc.? They don't want you to be independent from them. Thus, they want control of everything. And this is apparently the type of propaganda that works on people. I'll show you right now. Them telling you how all cars are going to be mandated to have automatic brakes on them. And of course, this is to save pedestrians, because everybody's getting run over by cars these days because nobody's paying attention. We wouldn't solve the problem by making it so phones don't work in the car or something along those lines. No, we'll just get more control over your car.
The video is hard to watch. 9-year-old Landon McKay thrown in the air after being hit in the crosswalk by what police say was an unlicensed driver.
I feel like it really could have been avoided if she was paying attention.
In the ER, Landon's injuries proved minor. In Washington, D.C., you have to look closely to see a woman in the crosswalk hit by a delivery van. She suffered serious injuries.
One of the big challenges we have right now is pedestrian fatalities.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg tonight announcing new automatic emergency brake, or AEB, standards for all cars and light trucks within 5 years to reduce the 43,000 people who die on Americans' roads each year. AEB works by using radar, video, or infrared sensors to scan for potential collisions. Most new cars already come with automatic braking, but the government is telling car makers they need to make the technology even better. A AAA study found current AEB prevents 85% of rear-end crashes under 30 miles per hour, but just 30% of crashes at 40 miles per hour. The new standards will require cars to avoid collisions at up to 62 miles per hour, automatically applying the brakes at up to 45 miles per hour for pedestrians, and able to see pedestrians in both daylight and darkness.
It's especially important because the data are showing us that about 75% of pedestrian and bicycle fatalities happen after dark.
The auto industry says automakers voluntarily committed to install AEB in new vehicles and have already met that commitment. The DOT hoping to save at least 360 lives and prevent 24,000 injuries a year.
We want to set a high standard for what it should be like for the future and have it be something that's in every car, not just one of the bells and whistles.
Hitting the accelerator on braking. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
So what's hilarious about that clip is that we actually have a news clip out there about how automated brakes aren't going to save pedestrians. But as you'll hear in this propaganda, even though automated brakes won't save a pedestrian from getting run over, we think it's in your best interest to get it anyway. Why? Well, because we really just think it's the best idea for you, because we want, of course, control over you.
Is killed in a traffic accident. Safety advocates are excited about the technology that can help prevent such crashes. But as Chris Van Cleve reports, new testing indicates it could be a long road.
Emergency braking systems can save lives. Many new cars are equipped with sensors that can detect a pedestrian and stop automatically if the driver doesn't. But new research finds it's not reliable.
How well do these systems work in real-world situations, like crossing the street?
We found that in many situations the vehicles struggled.
Greg Brannon is with AAA, which tested 4 mid-size sedans. In one scenario, a child darts out from behind 2 cars. 90% of the time, the technology failed to stop a vehicle traveling 20 miles per hour. Every time a car turned a corner, it hit the pedestrian. And when a sedan traveling 20 miles an hour encountered 2 adults, it hit them 80% of the time. The results were even worse in the dark.
The biggest thing that we uncovered is the fact that most of these systems do not work at night. And if you look at the situations where pedestrians are most vulnerable, it's at night.
Earlier this year, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety found most SUVs tested during the day were able to avoid a crash with a pedestrian or at least slow down. Brannon says the new technology should be embraced and given time to become more consistent.
Are you better to have it, even if it doesn't work, every case you'd like it to work in?
Absolutely.
So this is what your government is focused on, and nobody's connecting the dots. No one's paying attention to government overreach, that they want literally control over every single thing they could possibly imagine. People actually believe this has something to do with the climate. It's pretty incredible. In this case, they're not pushing the climate. But of course, when they tell you they want automatic brakes on your car, and then they tell you by 2030 this has to happen, 2029, and then by 2035 there won't be gas-powered vehicles sold in liberal states. Do you see where it's headed? Huh? They're telling you about driverless vehicles. They're still even telling you that automated brakes aren't going to save anybody's life because pedestrians can't really be spotted with it, and the sensor's not really going to spot the car to that, but it'll just spot it to another sensor, which would be another vehicle. Nobody out there, nothing's registering in their head. So it says in the not-so-distant future, automatic emergency braking will have to come standard on all new passenger vehicles in the U.S., a requirement that the government says will save hundreds of lives and prevent thousands of injuries every year. Of course, they don't tell you that the pedestrian issue, pedestrians getting hit, they never mention the fact that most of these people are on their phones, right? They never mention that fact. They just want you to think that, well, if we have more control over the actual vehicle, it'll make it safer. Now, of course, those numbers are inflated. They say the amount of people they always say we all know is inflated. They make up the numbers, just like they make up their polling numbers to influence you and make you think that this is what's going to happen. And then they pull the rug out from you, under you, when something else happens. Kind of like what they did with the whole red wave that was supposed to come, right? They psychologically manipulated everybody out there, knowing full well that all that was going to do is make people think the elections are rigged, which they are. They're fully rigged, but they just want you to think that it's the other side who's rigging it because they want you to think, stay in the left-right paradigm. But this story talks about 40,000 traffic deaths that happen every single year, right? And this is always the solution from the government. The solution is, you hear Pete Buttigieg talking about we're living through a crisis in roadway deaths, so we need to do something about it, right? How convenient, the thing you want to do about it is you want to add sensors and cameras to the cars, right? Sensors and cameras. Now, one of the things that we've seen over the years, like I talked about in the Ring video that I did, and I've talked about it for many years, even the Amazon Echo, when these things first come out, everybody's like, we're at a point where people literally are so desensitized to even this that are like, who cares if there's a camera on my car? Who cares if there's a camera on it? And eventually, in a year, 2 years, 3 years, you're going to hear, there are probably already stories out there, but you'll hear more and more stories about how that helps solve a crime, right? People out there will be like, that's great. Because this car had a camera on it, they were able to track this guy's license, ping it off that, follow it there. And nobody realizes that they're creating a surveillance state by doing this. They're like, fine, surveillance state. Makes for great TV, right? Yeah, it makes for great TV. Also makes for great enslavement of humanity. So this is what our government is working on. This is the stuff they care about, right? And they tell you that 90% of new vehicles already have automatic braking under a voluntary agreement with automakers. At present, there are no performance requirements. Some systems may not be that effective. So they tell you that it's not even that effective, but they're making it a full-on requirement. What does that tell you? Right? What does that tell you? They're telling you that people could still get run over. So shouldn't you say, well, if people could still get run over, then why are you making it mandatory? It's not solving the problem because they don't want to solve the problem. Okay, it's not about solving the problem. It's about getting what they want, which is control over you. So they're putting these things on the vehicle so they can have more control over your whereabouts, over what's around you. You create a surveillance state for the government. Right? The vision everyone's always had is that the government is going to roll down the streets and pop cameras up in every corner like it's 1984. But what they've done is they subliminally program people into doing it for them. So people are walking around with their phones, they're filming. People are putting cameras on their homes to quote unquote protect their homes from porch pirates, et cetera, et cetera. People are allowing cameras to be inside their home on their smart television just in the event they might want to do a Zoom call on it. Right? Huh? I mean, they're like, oh yeah, there's a camera on my TV. Do you mind? They're like, I don't care. That's called getting desensitized. Now we have cameras on the cars and everybody's doing it. They're creating the surveillance state through convenience for the government. And they don't even realize it. Even though they come out with these stories and then they tell you flat out, they're like, yeah, I mean, it's not really going to solve people from getting run over. But wait a minute. You just told us that you're going to make this mandatory because too many people are getting run over by cars, right? Yeah, that's what we're telling you. But then you're telling us that automated brakes still will not stop cars from hitting pedestrians, right? But if you don't tell everybody out there that it's to help pedestrians, people out there might get suspicious as to why you want sensors and cameras on everybody's car. But this is the way we're headed with technology. This is why they're doing it right now. This is why their foot's on the gas. This is why the New World Order is coming in so fast. Because the civilians have become obsessed with technology. They become dependent on it and obsessed with it. So they don't even think twice about who they're giving the authority over to because they think it's just some boogeyman that doesn't exist because they're just like, that's not how technology works. There's not somebody back there controlling. Oh, yeah? Do you hear stories like the one I covered about the Amazon home? Guy had a package from Amazon delivered to his home, right? Said something through his device to the guy who was delivering the package. The guy happened to be black. The guy who said something happened to be white. So he went back and reported it. And what happened? Amazon turned off all his smart devices. And nobody out there blinked when they heard the story. Amazon admitted to it. They said, hey, we did do that because of the guy's behavior. And everyone said, well, you know what? He shouldn't be racist. Instead of going, whoa, that's not really a crime. It's free speech. I mean, I don't condone that, but he just said something through a microphone. And then you turned off his fridge and his electricity, whatever was hooked up to the Amazon device, not the electricity, but his smart devices, right? He had a smart fridge. He had a smart thermostat. They shut his thermostat off, right? And people don't even blink and realize this is what we're giving over to these people. And the corporations are the ones in communism who work with the government. The government is the corporation. It's a corporation, the American corporation. So it's amazing that we willingly are seeing so many people okay with this, but they're more interested in their tech. And if you take their tech away from them, like I always say, if you take a phone away from a millennial, okay, they can't leave their house. If they leave their house to go somewhere, say they're going to the mall, right? If anyone even goes there anymore, and they leave their house and they realize they don't have their phone when they get to the mall, they'll go home to get their phone before they would go to they'd be like, I can't go in the mall without my phone, right? You don't even ask why. You're like, why? Is it in case of emergency? I need my phone. What do you need? They don't even, why? Because they want to take pictures of things to put on their social media accounts. They want to text when they're walking because they can't go 3 seconds without doing it. It shows you how dependent people are, right? And that right there is why the government is going forward with this New World Order now. Because they've monitored, they've watched, they've got people so cozy with tech. Now they have full control over them. And all people are doing is willingly giving the government control over their every single thing in their life. Everything. Food, water, your car, how many steps you take, putting these devices on your body that track your footsteps, all of this stuff. This is all government controlled. And everyone's like, no, it's not. It's just Nike. Nike wants, Nike's just helping me out because I'm on a diet. They're tracking my footsteps. They're tracking your movements. Or they're conditioning you into not even blinking when the government says they're going to track you with a carbon footprint to help out the environment. You're not even going to realize what they're doing because you're under such deep mind control. But as long as you have your tech, everything's okay, right? Unbelievable. People should see stories like this and they should say, with all this stuff going on, this is a concern. This is a mandate of the government. Of course it is. Of course it is. Because all the government's doing is getting more control over everybody's lives. And people don't even realize it because they're too distracted with the stuff the government's creating and gaslighting people with. Right? Now it's going to be mandatory for new vehicles to have it. So you're not going to be able to avoid it unless you keep a car from before that time period. You're going to be forced into this. Right? Nobody goes, that's a little bit over the top. It's overreach. What does the government have to do with motor vehicles, with General Motors and Honda, all these other countries that make vehicles? What is the government's involvement with it? Well, the government's involvement is they're all working together, right, to create a surveillance society. And that's what they're doing right now. I thank you for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.